Yeah, I know. I don't know. I guess when somebody vacates the seat, they get to take it. I'm finding these less and less to say about it.
Nancy, before the meeting gets started, I'd like to add a motion to the agenda tonight. Would you like me to read it, or would you like to have it then read it?
You can read it.
Okay. Sorry. The motion would be to move forward with the acquisition of the MR Writer property contingent upon necessary agreements and funding being obtained. Thank you.
I'd like to also add a motion.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like the motion to say I'd like to basically terminate Tom Bates effective immediately and appoint Bob Stewart as acting borough manager until an RFP can be produced and the position can be advertised.
Is that off the cuff or can I read down?
I'm going to write it down.
All right, thank you. All right, so that would be 10A would be the one referring to my writer, and 10L will be the motion terminated. All right, it is 8:58. We're back from the executive session. We were speaking with regards to personnel matter.
7:58.
7:58.
Yeah.
So now we'll go to the hearing of the public. The first person we have this evening is George Marchand.
Good evening, George Marchand, a Morrisville property owner. I addressed the board 3 or 4 months ago concerning the fair share trash fee. I never heard anything back other than threat of suit from the borough. I talked to Mr. Stewart, gave him a copy of an escrow account with that money deposited in it. He said, I don't want this. Refused to take it. When I got a second notice, I brought it back to him and turned it in, but the proceedings were being investigated and had them stamped that they received it. And a couple weeks ago, I talked to Mr. Bates about getting some information under the right to know law, which he declined to fulfill, said he couldn't give you that information, wasn't the form that he could give out. And he followed another message to that effect, and he said, which trash haul are you referring to? So it's like, one, either he's dumb and doesn't know who our trash hauler is, or he thinks I am, and after the comments last week, I guess we know how he thinks about the public. And anyway, there's no reason that if they call it fair share tax, but why is my fair share trash fee $630 not to pick up my trash more than twice what the average homeowner pays for the church? If it's share fair, why is it twice, over twice? To me, the only solution here, since they haven't done it in 4 months, is to privatize sanitation for everybody. The only reason I can see to have public sanitation pickup is either someone or the borough is making money at the residents' expenses. And I just feel that at this point, I would like to see them maybe investigate privatizing trash collection in this town so it's fair for everybody. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. We'll take that under consideration next time we go back to contract. But there are a number of reasons not to have a privatization. Next, we have Sharon Hughes.
My name is Sharon Hughes. I'm a lifelong resident of Morrisville. I live at 121 Mercer Avenue. I'm president of the Historic Morrisville Society at Summerseat, which is next to the M.R. Writer School property. Summerseat's a registered National Historic Landmark, and that means it's officially recognized by the United States government for its outstanding degree of historic significance. Summerseat would benefit in many ways if the M.R. Writer School property became open space. I congratulate both the Borough Council and the Morrisville School Board for the actions they've taken in this direction. Open space on the M.R. Writer property, which is centrally located, would benefit the houses in that area, as it would raise their property values. It would give youngsters a safe place to play, where they wouldn't have to cross Route 32 to get to Williamson Park. Children have played on the M.R. Ryder property since before my dad played there. I also played there. They had great mud at the foot of the property, as I remember. We had a grand time there. Summer Seat's records show that the property was given to Morrisville as a park. But when a place was needed for a school, it was agreed that it could be used for the children of Morrisville as that school. From that point on, the land was used for children to play before, during, and after school. Let's keep it as it was intended for the use of the children and the families of Morrisville. The people of Morrisville already own that property, but to be fair, the property does have value to the school district, which is owned by the people of Morrisville, and there is money to purchase that property for a passive park or open space. I know that the borough is concerned about the upkeep of the property if it becomes a park, but cutting grass is not that big a chore and is less than half of the year that you need to do that. As for winter, I know snow removal might be thought to be an issue with this year, but why not take up the sidewalks around the property, the M.R. Ryder property, if you purchase it? After all, the property is surrounded by sidewalks on the opposite side of the street, so the borough would not be bothered with snow removal, would, save some time. And I've never seen, or there's very few parks, not in Morrisville, very few parks have sidewalks actually around the park. The sidewalk is usually across the street. Morrisville, the families of Morrisville, and National Historic Landmark Summer Seat would benefit greatly from open space at the M.R. Ryder property. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone.
Thank you.
Can I
Next,
say one more time? I forgot, my advertisement. Summer Seat is open for free tours the first Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. I can tell you about the skirmish between the British and the American forces across the river. A lot of interesting information there. So first Saturdays of every month from 10 to 1. Thank you. Yes.
thank you. Next, we have Tony DiMario.
Hi, Tony DiMario, 119 Leisha Drive, Morrisville. I am the current president of Morrisville Little League. At the end of December, I received a letter in the mail from the borough stating that it enacted the 2015 fee schedule, which included in Section 17, Part B, subsection A and B, accredited sports organization member participation fee. A participation fee of $15 per resident and $30 per non-resident shall be charged as a member of an accredited and/or sanctioned sports organization twice yearly, spring and fall seasons. Section B, a field fee of $200 will be charged for all accredited sports tournaments and special sports events. As you can imagine, this came as a shock to myself and the other Morrisville board members. Knowing this has never been the case for our league, immediately I reached out to our borough contact to inquire why a new fee structure was created. The main answer I received was the other municipalities do it, especially Lower Makefield. I requested a meeting with the entire council, but was told that would not be possible to try and do. Instead, members of Morrisville Little League Board and I met with Mr. Bates, Ms. Sherlock, and Mr. Seward. We discussed the letter and its implications. Council members were made aware at the time that we were already 2 months into our registrations, and we could not go back to families and ask for money to help account for new fees. Over the course of the next 2 months, we made multiple attempts to introduce a counter-proposal for the newly imposed fees. The counter-proposal was finally heard at last week's agenda meeting, at which time it was denied, and the decision to maintain the current fee schedule was upheld. My reason for speaking tonight is to address many untrue statements I've heard while in attendance at council meetings and/or watching the meetings via live stream over the past 2 months. I'm here tonight to set the record straight for Morrisville Little League. Morrisville Little League was established in 1952 and has always played in Williamson Park. The league is a non-profit league that is here for one purpose, which is to serve the children of our community. As a Little League, it is held to strict boundary guidelines. Little League International sets these boundary guidelines for each league in our area. The boundary is what determines who can play in which league. Morrisville Little League's boundary consists of 19067, which is Morrisville, including Falls Township, Morrisville Borough, Yardley, and Lower Makefield. Therefore, contrary to what some individuals might have stated, that Morrisville can go and play a Diamond Nation at the previous agenda meeting, that would be in violation of our league boundary. As a nonprofit, we are required to file taxes. We are not a business that has paid employees, contrary to belief. As a nonprofit, all the individuals that give countless hours to assure fields are ready, kids get to play their games, and kids learn life lessons are all volunteers. I and the rest of the board that run the league are all volunteers that have regular full-time jobs. In addition to the countless hours of volunteering we do for Morrisville Little League, as well as raising and providing for our own children and families. Myself alone have provided over 200 hours last year to Morrisville Little League, in addition to maintaining a hectic work schedule. Never once did I ask, am I doing this for a borough or a non-borough child? The board members and countless parents who volunteer do not question whether the children who are registered within our organization are from the borough or not. Our goal is to see these kids enjoy the game of baseball and become better citizens as they get older. It is all about learning life lessons. I have invited a few of our Little Leaguers to join us this evening and would ask them to stand now. I ask you one question. Which of these children is from the borough, from Morrisville, Yardley, or Lower Makefield? All I see is a group of kids who want to play baseball. Thanks. Every March, we have field cleanup days, the first 3 Saturdays of March. We have volunteers, borough and non-borough families, come to the park and clean all the leaves, pick up the garbage, and get the entire park clean and ready for spring. None of these folks are paid to do this. They look at this community service as a moral responsibility to the league and where it plays. Do you think for 1 minute they think to themselves they are in Morrisville Borough? No. They consider themselves part of the community, no questions asked. We don't ask for the borough to come down and clean the park for us so we can play. We feel it is something necessary for the league to do as part of playing in the park. Everyone that is part of the league takes pride in being in the park. This league is about volunteers, and that is what it's always been about. We don't profit from registrations or take the money and go elsewhere. All the funds that are brought in by the league are invested back into the league. The majority of the funds go right back into the park. We charge a registration fee for each child to play. Do you as a council realize that fee is less if a family has a second, third, or even fourth child playing? Instead, all we hear is how Lower Makefield charges fees, so Morrisville needs to do it. In addition, does the council realize that Morrisville Little League has over a dozen cases of financial hardship for families that want their children to play and can't afford to pay to play? The question remains, why has no one from the council reached out to speak to me or any member of the board to discuss this fee that you have decided to impose on these families? By not coming to us, you, the council, did not take into consideration a family that struggles to pay, in addition to a family with multiple children that are now required to pay even more. For my family personally, you are now demanding an additional $90 for my 3 children to play the game they love. Did you stop to think of the financial impact that you are now creating for our families? It's easy to say, just increase the registration fee, but when you start to have less and less children play because they can't afford it, then you don't have a league any longer. The realization is that the registration fees we collect go towards uniforms, balls, umpire fees, electric bills, field maintenance, facility repairs, and field work. Additionally, all our teams have sponsors assigned to them. These sponsors are the majority of the businesses in Morrisville and the borough. I'm sure they would not be happy to know that the sponsor fee that they are paying for a team is going right back to the borough. Sure, it's easy to say, just take $15 or $30 out of the registration fee. Unfortunately, registration fees alone do not cover the league's expenses for the entire year. If we only had registration fees, we would be out of business. Sponsorships that are provided to the league and events that are put together for the league to raise funds is what helps the league stay afloat and not be out of business. As a side note for the council's information, all the sponsorships and events that we have are run by mostly the same volunteers that coach, clean fields, and teach other children in this community. Back at January's meeting, Ms. Smith decided to cleverly show everyone a layout of the park and how baseball, I think the phrase she used, is using 75% of your park. I think the shock and awe was a little much. Consider the fact that the two main fields have been a part of the park forever. The remaining fields have been there for over 10 years. The multi-purpose field has two fields, but positioned so that anyone can still use the field for soccer or what they may. The borough reviewed and approved for those fields to be where they are, contrary to the council's questioning of who approved them at the last agenda meeting. Having been in the league for over the last 8 years, the multi-purpose area actually looks better than what it did when I first came to the league. Does the council realize that the borough's own Morrisville High School uses the softball field and our big field as their home field? They use both of those fields that volunteers of Morrisville Little League clean and maintain. The same volunteers that might be borough volunteers could very well be non-borough volunteers. Who does the council think is responsible for lighting the fields so that games can be played in the evening? Morrisville Little League does. Here is a tidbit of how much Morrisville Little League invests into the park. We pay on average $6,000 for electric use. Morrisville Little League receives on a monthly basis 3 bills to pay for electric, and that is all year around, not just from March through October. We invested $20,000 into the park in the way of renovations to the fields last year. Over the previous 4 years, dating back to 2009, we as a league have invested $114,000 in field renovations and an additional $24,000 in field renovations to Morrisville High School fields. We pay $4,500 a year for Little League charter and insurance fees. Our field maintenance fees on a yearly basis, which includes dirt, gravel, seed, lime, fertilizing, runs $20,000 with an additional $8,000 in facility maintenance fees, which accounts for keys, fence repairs, and just overall repairs to the facility. Never once has Morrisville Little League asked for the borough to pay or contribute to any of these expenses. So you ask, where does all this money come from? It is the volunteers of the league that participate in running events to raise money, get sponsorships from businesses. The registration fees alone can't come close to covering any of this. If it wasn't for our fundraising, then we would not be able to continue providing a safe and appealing park for kids to play. Sure, the borough provides for mowing of the park, emptying of the park, trash cans, and cleaning of the bathrooms. But think for a minute, if baseball was not there, it would have to do this anyway, correct? It is a park after all. Are we saying that it would not be kept up if baseball was not there? Please understand, Morrisville Little League is not looking for exclusive use of this park. If the council would communicate with us, we are more than happy to work with the council to avoid conflicts. I recall 2 years ago, there was a gun rally in the park. The news came out and it was such a highlight for Morrisville Borough, all the publicity. We adapted and canceled all our games for that day. The same can be said about when the carnival comes to town. You know, where most kids want to go after games, Dairy Queen. I believe that is in the borough. I'm sure they appreciate the league being there. La Villa, Antonio's, Cunningham's Hardware, Ben's Deli, Burns Pharmacy, and on all appreciate us being there in our business. These businesses are where the families of the league patronize on an annual basis. We as a league made a generous proposal to the council as an alternative to the head tax. No one from council came to us and even sat down and talked to us about it. The only concern that was had by the council was if they were making out better or if the proposal was in Morrisville Little League's favor. Obviously, you are using the baseball program to try and fill a void in your budget. I have listened to comments made by several of you how you love baseball, and this is not to hurt the players or the league. I respectfully ask the council to sit down with the Morrisville Little League Board and I in order to come to an agreement regarding these fees. The simple answer of raising fees and take it out of your registration does not work. I think the council should reconsider penalizing people who are bringing life to Williamson Park. In closing, I ask the council to think about the following. Can you answer yes to even one of these questions? Have you ever come to a t-ball game and watched a 5-year-old hit the ball off the tee and run the bases with excitement? Have you ever come to a softball game and listened to the girls cheer and encourage their teammate at bat in a tough situation? Have you ever come down to see the park, to see what the park is like on a Saturday, when families are out there supporting not only their children, but other families' kids? Have you ever taken a group of 11-year-old boys to Mansfield, PA to play in a PA state championship? I have. As I said, I am the current president of Morrisville Little League, but I won't always be the president, just like you won't always be members of Morrisville Borough Council. I would like for my legacy as president to be that I helped Morrisville Little League move forward, and that I helped make it a better place for both the kids and the community. What do you want your legacy to be? Will you be the council that made a Morrisville institution since 1952 better, or will you be the council that hurt a program and a community of children that loved it so much? I hope the kids can count on you. I know I am. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Mario. But in council's defense, I'd like to say that our State Rep Steve Sanacero was also part of the negotiations, as well as conversations with Mr. Bates that he was bringing back to council. So there was never really a thought that we were all going to sit down together to talk to you. I was talking to Ms. Smith earlier this evening before we started, and I'd really like to see this come to a rest. And I think the last proposal was $9,000 for the first year and the incremental raises. I think two things is what council is looking for, and that would be, we've never seen a roster, and then also the issue has to do with baseball, a baseball field that would be designated that would always be available to the residents if they wanted to play, because I know that they're all being used. For the most part. Is that true? I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
We do have games on the weekends on every
weekend,
field
right?
that is there.
Yeah. Okay,
Now, on
so
Sundays, we don't have games there all day Sunday.
Okay,
Saturdays, we do.
okay. So, I had it to talk later on in the meeting this evening, that we could have some discussion with Borough Council. But I don't know, I know that there are people here this evening, but I don't know that now is the correct time to take up that time to do that now. I don't know how council, rest of council feels about that. I mean, I'd rather have a little longer discussion, but, anybody have actual discussion?
Yeah, you do then.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's fine.
I mean,
At the end?
well, under public discussion, or maybe at the next agenda meeting. I mean, if you wanted to all sit down around the table. I mean, for all council to be at a meeting, it would have to be an advertised meeting. So that's why you only get a small portion, unless it's an advertised meeting. So,
When does your board meet?
We have first Tuesday of every month.
Where is that? Are we available?
In the
Are we able
clubhouse.
to come? One or two of us, if
You're more than welcome to come to our meeting.
it's in Glen Woolly Field, right? That
It's at
clubhouse?
the main clubhouse, yes.
Okay.
The only thing I will say in my defense is that wasn't meant to be slighted, that map. We are working on improvements on the park, and that is something that our engineer had done on mapping of that area. So we would know where we were able to put in trails and upkeeping on there, what we're going to do with the pool area that was meant, but that was a reality. I mean, for me, when I attended meetings, which I've been to find out the planning of the park, that is how much is being used. There's nothing meant to be slighted about it. That wasn't why it was there. Most people in town probably didn't even realize that. And that, so it wasn't meant to do that, but just to be aware of that. I personally, for myself, I think that baseball was blindsided because of the fact that our budget ran so late getting it done. And I'm sure that you probably had your registration moving along at that point. The way it came out at that time, I think was really bad as far as having to, at this point, do a fee. It is costing us quite a bit, and we're the only ones that don't charge for the use of our field for anyone. Anyone has to pay to use our fields. So I agree that it was wrong the way it was implemented, and that should be dealt with better. Absolutely, it wasn't fair the way it was done. I think it should be talked about some more, but that's not what I meant, was to take a shot at baseball for that at all.
And if I can just add, in fairness to that, you did say that we're not the only ones that you know, we haven't been charging at this point.
Right.
But you do need to understand what information you ask for from other municipalities. If you're asking for a public park, or if you're asking for somewhere that there is baseball fields, for instance, you're asking Lower Makefield what they pay to have their children play. The township maintains that 100%.
Right.
We call for dirt to be delivered. We have volunteers that are down there cleaning the park. Lower Mayfield doesn't do that. The town has that built into their budget, and they account for that.
But is that sole usage, when they do that, is that the sole usage of that league to do that? Where you're maintaining that and the nice fields, but the total usage is for your baseball league, it is not used by the residents, so that's for your purpose to have those fields.
We've never stated that no one else can use those fields.
I don't know, that's not what I'm hearing from residents, that they don't have any field use, is what I'm hearing. So. I'm just telling you what
Okay.
I'm hearing, but that's, I mean, I have no problem. I think it should be something that should have been discussed and not put on the league the way it was. That was definitely wrong.
I agree. Yeah, we were 2 months into registration
Yes.
at that point.
Yes, I agree. Clearly, and I think that was wrong, the administration to do it that way. So I think it should be looked into. As far as, like I said, if you thought that's the reason why I did it with the map, we are on a timeline to use some of our open space money or grants we have to try and do some of the improvements that are down there. So that's the reason that map was there.
Mr. DeMario, your next meeting would be, I guess, the 7th of April then. That's that first Tuesday? All right, so, and I think Fred is showing interest in possibly attending to maybe have some conversations. And our next agenda meeting is the 13th of April, and maybe we can, between those two meetings, maybe we can have this settled and come to some sort of compromise with regards to the pricing. And I hope, again, I don't think we were working, we weren't shunning you on purpose. We thought that things were being worked out either between Mr. Sanicero and Tom Feeds. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
And
One more question.
thank you for being there.
What time is that meeting?
It's at 7:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Kurt Holmrich.
Good evening, Kurt Holmrich, 300 Melvin Avenue North. Motion 10B. Is there a reason why we are looking to transfer our solicitor from previous June to Mr. Kilkenny? Is there something that they're not doing that we can get better, Mr. Kilkenny, better rates? Is there a reason why that's being done? And if we're doing it, why not advertise and try and get competitive bids and find a office that will give us the best for the borough? What happened?
I think you can answer that during the
He's
listening.
he's running for sheriff too. How's he gonna be able to juggle being sheriff of Montgomery County and also being our vigorous representation for our borough at the same time?
I think he'll answer that during his report.
Okay? Just seems a little odd, that's all. Okay.
Thank you. Next, Bill Setzer.
Good evening. I'm Bill Setzer, 806 Crown Street. I'm the chairman of the Morrisville EAC, Environmental Advisory Council. Just wanted to, with all the public here, to tell everyone that next Wednesday night here in this hall, we're having a MEAC workshop meeting, which all our meetings are always open to the public, but this one in particular, we'd like to see a lot of members of the public and also borough management and borough council come to. And it's to discuss improvement plans that we've been working on for quite a few months now. We'd like to share those with the public, with the borough management council. We're not talking, by the way, just to make it very clear, this has nothing to do with the baseball situation or usage of the park. For the areas that aren't being used by baseball, it's about improvements such as trails, benches, bike racks, that sort of thing. We'd like to get public input as we move forward with an improved park plan. So that's next Wednesday night here at 7 p.m. and we hope people will come to that and hear what we have already thought out and make their own proposals that we can weigh in on and incorporate. And I also wanted to say, I thought the resolution, I guess was a resolution that Debbie Smith proposed, seems very reasonable. The EAC has been working on plans to hopefully get the borough to acquire the M.R. Ryder property. It's based on finding grant money for both the acquisition and the demolition of the building. It's only reasonable that that be contingent, I think, in any sale negotiations with the school board. And we do believe that this is going to come to fruition. There are grant monies that we're looking for right now. So I hope you'll move forward on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Eileen Dreisbach.
Eileen Dreisbach, 75 Harrison Avenue. First of all, I'd like to say how disappointed I was to see the video in the article in the Courier Times, one more slap in the face to Morrisville. And I just want to make note, in case some people don't know, how Mr. Bates got into the borough. He was brought here by a certain couple of people to be the borough manager. And Mr. Ravella stated that Bates retired from the local 269 in 2006. But also, it was stated that for the last 7 years, Bates was the assistant manager of local 276. So I don't know which covers Bucks County and surrounding counties. So I don't know which of that is true. Also, Mr. Ravella noted that Bates has been retired, well, I put that. Residents of Morrisville deserve the best applicant. I always vote what I believe is the best interest of Morrisville Borough. Nancy Sherlock stated, I felt he has the personality that fits the job. He has a financial background. You need a certain person. You have to work with the public as well as the employees. Now, that was back October 18, 2010. The vote went down 5-2. Nancy Sherlock, Dave Ravella, Rhonda Davis, Fred Kerner, and Vic Cicero voted in favor of hiring Mr. Bates. Todd Sanford and myself voted against this. And we've been against it ever since. I've actually gone at least twice and asked for his resignation, of which was either tabled or denied, voted down. Mr. Bates has been like a cancer since he came. Anything that gets in his way, he destroys, including our borough since he's come here. He needs to go. go, because I know that was just stated, but I feel we should stay with the firm that we already have, Friedman Schumann. Mr. Kilkenny is, from what I understand, running for sheriff, and it does bother me that this would be a full-time job for him, and how will he delegate his time? And I feel, well, as far as baseball goes, Little League Baseball, I was on the Recreation Advisory Board. Several years ago, they came before us because council had suggested they come to us first with their plans for 2 new fields down there. Now, these are the fields that are located closest to Delmore Avenue by Imagination Island. When they came to the Recreation Advisory Board, we were told by them that these will be multi-purpose fields. Little League, or soccer was already practicing and playing there. And from what I understand, they were told they were no longer allowed to play there because it was ruining the grass. Carnival also sat there. Now it's up on the hill, in the mud. Because they're no longer allowed to set up down there either, because they're ruining the grass. And at that same time, we were told that they were going to give back 2 fields to the borough, the 2 closest to the stage. From my understanding, they're still using those 2 fields. They weren't given back to the borough. So someone needs to look back into the agreement of when they were told they could build those 2 fields. There's supposed to be nothing permanent on those 2 fields, and it was supposed to be open to the public. I have nothing against Little League. My son's played Little League. But we're putting out money every month for electric bills, the residents of the borough. And not every borough resident has a child that's playing. Right now, this month on the bill list is $180.75 for their clubhouse. And this gets paid every month by the residents. I guess that's about all I have to say. Oh, one more thing. All the 2 of you who sit up there tonight should get up from your seats, resign, and walk out with your heads hung in shame for hiring and allowing this individual to be here for 4.5 years. Shame on you all.
Next, we have Mr. Bill Farrell.
Ms. Sherlock?
Yes.
Can I just address the clubhouse light question?
Not this time. I'm sorry, Mr. Moore. DeMario, I'm sorry.
Bill Farrell, 347 North Pennsylvania Avenue. There were a couple of things. I saw the video and the article in the paper. And, as you people know, I'm not a fan of Courier Times. I wish somebody would, instead of doing subjective reporting, do objective reporting, show both sides. And that hasn't happened. Now, 10B, I'm not going to make a comment on it until the vote comes out. Then I'll find out if the Chicago 5 are here, the Shanghai 6, or Cincinnati 6, or Seattle 7, whoever's here tonight. In addition, relative to the motion Mr. Parker put for Mr. Bates' design, I'm anxious to see the votes. Mr. Ravel, I know, since you've been mayor, you've been sending emails to the council, and unfortunately, you haven't got a lot of replies. Well, let me remind you, when you were president of the council, and a number of these people were here, I used to come up and say, almost every meeting, some people up there got information and others did not. That's a major problem here. You gotta, it's like an outsider looking in, and then all of a sudden it's an insider looking out. Some people were getting that information. You were entitled to get that information, and it should be done. It's about time you stop playing games with politics. And that's the problem here in this town. Oh, the last monthly meeting, Mr. Cicero, I thought you had a bus to catch. You look like you want to get in and get out of here. Because you were in a hurry to get out of here. In addition, somebody I know and you know says you don't like people coming up here talking about things in the past. You look to the future. Well, you must be an optimist. I've been coming here a long time, and I was asking questions when they could have been answered. They were never answered. So back then it was the present. Now they have become the past. And I still haven't got any answers. I spoke 4 or 5 different times on this audit thing, paying $6 grand instead of 2. 4 times, never got an answer. I asked about the controller, what happened, what changed policies. I still haven't got the answer. When I come here, like I said one time, it's the NIA, no information available. That's what people get. You don't have to answer the questions, I understand. But I would tell you personally, if the truth walked in that door, walked up here and stood in front of you people, some of you people would know the truth. You would not know the truth. Hey, I'm not running for anything. Mr. Kilkenny, you might be a new sheriff in Montgomery County, partner. But this is the stuff that bothers people in town. People will come up here, ask you a question. At least give them an answer. Don't look at them like they came from Mars, and that's the way it is. I'm not as sensitive as a lot of people. You can scratch my back, you can run over me with a car. If I'm not available, I'll be up. But I wish you people would stop with this crazy game that goes on. Everybody should get all the information up there, every one of you. And Mr. Rivella, you should get, when you send an email to these people, they should send you an email back. They should answer your questions. Now you know how I feel when I used to ask these questions up here. I'm in the same boat you are, except I'm growing. But it's about time that this stops from this point on. Now, as relative to the articles in the paper, I'm not even going to speak on it. I'm only making it short and sweet. Spring is coming the 21st of March, and elections are coming in November. That's all I will say. So, people in Morrisville, get out and vote. Do your thing, as they say today. I'm looking forward to see how the voting goes. That'll determine, in my opinion, whether Morrisville is going to go forward or going to stay in this black abyss that we've been in for so many years because of the politics in this town. With that, I wish you all what's that holiday, the Irishman? Go on a beer and corned beef and mashed potatoes. Thank you.
St. Patrick's Day to you too, Mr. Farrell. Mr. Farrell, I'd just like to mention about the control room, all those questions, they have all been answered. So I'd like it to be put to bed. So they've all been answered.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, they've all been answered. Numerous times they have been answered. Why and what's going on with the controller.
You may have answered them.
But nobody likes that answer.
I like it. When I cite an act that says you can't spend any more than $2,000 for 20,000 list people, and you pay $6,000, you're not answering my question. You're spending twice as much as you should, or 3 times as much.
Our controller is not coming in to do
I'm not
his
talking
job.
about the controller yet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about your audits.
Okay.
Isn't there something that says you can't charge more than $2,000 with less than 20,000 people in the borough? Isn't there an act? I cited it numerous times, but you spent $6,000. That's not answering my question.
That's because the controller also used to do some of our audits. So it's been answered. I'm done. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, like I said, when I go home, I'll probably have a Pepsi, something to give me thirst. But like I said, when people come up with this answer. Just like the pool, I don't want to get into that. How many times did I ask about that pool? And how many times did you guys give me a sad story? And how many times did you say this and that and this and that, and then this and that, this and that? Just be honest with people. Just be honest. You give me an honest answer. I may not like the answer, but if I can see it's honest, I'll accept it. But if you're going to BS me, then you'll see me next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jane Berger.
Good evening, Jane Berger, 90 West Maple Avenue, Morrisville Borough resident. First, I want to thank you for finally having the break in the weather to get the legal notice kiosk boards on the outside put up. They are very attractive, and it'll be good to know that there's a place for all the legal notices that everyone can see. Certainly everyone is glad that the agenda meetings have been restored. I did read the legal notice, and unfortunately there's a problem with it, and you really need to redo it. And I guess, Mr. Sherlock, when council used to get copies of that, so I guess if they do that still when you got them, you didn't catch that they were advertised as an agenda or workshop meeting. As we found out back in 2004 or somewhat, that our borough, as well as countless others for several decades, had been improperly advertising agenda work sessions. They need to be advertised as a special meeting for the purpose of doing that. And please, you can reconfirm this with Shelley Howe out in PSAB, who's the one that kind of informed a lot of us. So at that point, we changed the advertisement. I will say, in Mr. Bates' defense as Borough Secretary, that there have not been agenda meetings since they were last advertised, I think, for calendar year 2011. They weren't held.